Hello, good morning. I'm Matt Kane. I'm from the Astro core framework team. Just a quick intro. I'm the framework lead for the team, so I'm lucky enough to be able to work full-time working on the framework. I've been doing open source for a really long time. In the past, I was a core maintainer of Gatsby, RIP, and I've contributed bits to most frameworks, some of it tiny, some of it bigger. And I live in England, near Stonehenge. I say that because it's something that most people have heard of. You can find me on Blue Sky, MKGG, and Ascorbic, basically everywhere else. So today I want to talk about the future of Astro, where we're headed, what we're building, and why we're excited about it. But first, how many people here have heard of Astro? Most people. Okay, how many people here have used Astro? Well, hopefully this bit will be, I'm going to go through, give a little of introduction for the few of you here who are not particularly familiar with it, but I'm just going to give a quick intro and then say what we've been up to recently. So, Astro is the framework for building content-driven websites. It's built on Vite, of course. I mean, if you saw the documentary last night, you will have heard a bit of the backstory behind there, a little bit of drama and everything, but we're very happy that we made that choice. Vite has served us very well. So the thing about Astro is we don't try to be the framework for everybody. If you're building a dashboard, you can do Astro, but it's probably not the best choice. Live chatbot, equally, there's plenty of other great choices here today. You can hit them up. But if you're building a content-driven site, so blogs, marketing sites, docs, e-commerce, we think that Astro is the best choice. So why do we think that? What makes Astro different? Zero JavaScript by default. So as standard, if you start a site, it's going to send just HTML, CSS, no JavaScript, unless you actually need it. That means that Astro is incredibly fast by default. So if you're just building a site that's all just about the content, and you don't need JavaScript, pure HTML, literally no way of getting faster, maybe pure text. And we do this because we've got an islands architecture. Now, what that means is that if you do need interactivity, we can just send just the right amount of JavaScript that you need just to hydrate the little bits that are interactive. So if you could have a page that's mostly static, but you need a few little widgets that are interactive, you can hydrate just those. So it can send just a little bit of JavaScript. And that means that it can stay fast, even if you do need some interactivity in there. And when you're doing those, you can bring your own framework. We love all of the frameworks. And what this means is that you can use all of these in Astro. So you can use these island components. They can be React, Vue, Svelte, Solid, Preact, Quick, Angular, Alpine. I think there's even some more. Or you can just use vanilla JavaScript. It's your choice. You can even mix and match them all on the same page if you're crazy. Or building a design system. That's a good example. And finally, because of our focus on content, you won't be surprised to hear that we've got lots of tools to help you work with it. The core of this is the content collections. These are a way of organizing all of your content in one place and letting you query them and work with them in the type-safe API. And it helps stop getting overwhelmed with all of the different ways that you can have content. So these principles, zero JavaScript by default, interactive island architecture, framework flexibility, and powerful content management have made Astro incredibly popular for content-heavy sites, both large ones and small ones. But what have we been up to lately? I'm going to give a quick update, not too long, just on what we've been doing this year. So the main thing we've been doing this year is growing. Like a lot of frameworks, we've been growing very fast. Like literally just last month, we hit 3 million monthly downloads for the first time. And that's more than double just this year. So since January, not in 12 months, since January, we've more than doubled. We've passed 50,000 GitHub stars. We were #1 meta framework for satisfaction, retention, and interest in state of JS. So, people love it if they've tried it. And if they haven't tried it, they want to. But I'm particularly proud of the community. We've got over 35,000 people on Discord. It's really active, really helpful, great community. We've got like more than 1,000 people who have contributed to the docs. Some of you may have seen Sarah yesterday talking about contributing to open source. We really care about getting people involved. And the docs have been translated into 14 languages, which is, that's quite an unusual thing for some of these projects. But what's this look like in practice? Who's using Astro? Here are some of the new adopters in the last year. So Cloudflare migrated all of their developer docs to Astro, liked it so much, they rebuilt Cloudflare.com in it as well. Netlify already had Netlify.com on Astro. They then rebuilt their doc site in Astro. Michelin, Unilever chose Astro for their global marketing sites, their main sites, and they're joining brands like Porsche and IKEA, who both got their main global sites on Astro. And Visa and Cash App, whichever one you choose, they both put their design systems on Astro. And then this was a bit of a wild card. We were very surprised when we heard this. Webflow, they've just announced that they've chosen Astro to power their AI code gen. So if you're using the Webflow code gen to build a site, it's an Astro site every time. I think that's pretty cool. And then this is a final pretty cool one. I literally just this morning got permission to talk about this one. Obviously, one of the biggest newspapers in the world, the Washington Post, is moving to Astro. Soon, all the articles and category pages, I think all of them, somebody here will be able to tell, are going to be using Astro. And they chose Astro because it's so fast and so nice to work with. And they had a lot of React stuff already. They can just move it over and use it straight away. And obviously, when it comes to content-driven sites, you don't get much bigger than that. So really proud about that one. But I'm not going to stand here congratulating ourselves all day. Let's actually start talking about what we're shipping. About a year ago, we shipped Astro 5. It's got some big new features in it. We shipped an all-new version of content collections, which took them beyond the markdown on the files on disk, which is where it started. And so now you can pull in your content from anywhere. So you can pull it from a CMS, APIs, databases, and you manage it all in the same place in the same way. And it's all type safe and just really nice and easy to use. And we also brought in server islands, which are a new architecture that combines the performance of a static page or a long cached page with server-side rendering. So like where a client island is adding client-side JavaScript to a static page, server islands add dynamic server-side rendered content to a static or cached page. So you can have a little bit of personalized or dynamic or real-time content on a page that is otherwise not changing. So these were big changes, but since 5.0, we've been focused on 3 things. So I think, this is not so shiny, but stability, really important. As Astro is growing, more people are betting their sights on us, from vitally important personal blogs to IKEA.com, and we need to make sure things work. And we also don't want to make it painful when people are upgrading and things like that. So the thing that I'm really most proud of this year, to be honest, is the number of bugs that we fixed. We've closed hundreds of issues. We know we're battling to get our issue count down to 100 again, but that's probably the thing that we've done the most this year. So it's not quite so headline grabbing, but it's probably the thing that does the most for the quality of life of Astro developers all over. So we've been, these are big and small issues all the way across the Astro ecosystem. And, loads of people have been helping out there. And the other thing is scale. We are growing, so we're having to handle bigger sites. So we've got to handle everything from, my portfolio. Check out mk.gg if you like retro hypercard sites, or cloudflare.com. So we have to care about both. So we'd have to put in these tools to make it so that it's able to handle those kind of things. And probably what a lot of you care about, DX, developer experience. Developers love Astro. And as we grow, we need to make sure we're keeping it that way and making sure that we're bringing in the tools to make it, delightful and fun to work with Astro. So bug fixes, all well and good, but they don't make good conference slides. So let's talk about a few nice little features, mostly, that we've shipped this year that are about making life better for all of us and our users as well. So this was a super popular one. Seems a little tiny. SVG components. This is an amazing amazing DX win. So literally just import an SVG, and it's a component. Simple, saves a lot of time. It's inlined in your page, and then you can pass in props, width, height, stroke. They get applied to the SVG element. Type safe. A lot going under the hood to make it so simple and small. And then images. This is a thing close to my heart. They're simple, right? It's just an image tag. Works the same as it did 30 years ago. But if you care about performance, core web vitals, and so on, it actually gets really complicated. So you need responsive images, different sources for different sizes, for different devices. You need to optimize your formats, WebP, AVIF. You need to lazy load. You need to prevent layout shift. You need the right sizes, attributes. There's a lot. And Astro helped you out with some of that before, but we've kind of taken it to the next level to make it, really, really dial in all the best practices. So we made some changes to the Astro image component. So this is what it looks like now. Exciting, eh? We kept the API as simple as if it was 1995, back when I was a kid. This is what that generates, though, under the hood. Don't you love it? All the right sources, all the right attributes, following all the best practices. It's got styles, it's got, and this is all automatic. No layout shift or anything, and no debugging. It's all just works. And this sort of thing will give you the all of the best scores on your, Lighthouse tests and all that kind of stuff. So this is what I mean by great DX. Is the best practices should be the easiest thing to do. So what have we got next? We're rewriting Astro in PHP. No, wait a minute. Not that. Lambo has to wait. I've always loved how simple sessions are in PHP. And we've added sessions to Astro. And so PHP is where we look for inspiration. So, sessions are a really nice, simple way to store user data securely on your server. And it's, people forget about them because they're building SPAs and you're keeping your state in the browser and everything. But the sessions are just a lot more simple. If they're done right, they're very simple. So this is what the PHP sessions look like. This is what Astro sessions look like. Get the cart from the session. Use it in your component. In your server actions, read and write from the session just as easily. Seems pretty simple. Behind the scenes, Astro handles everything. Secure storage, powered by unstorage. Thank you, Puya, if you're in the room. Session cookies, platform integrations. So, if you're deploying to Cloudflare, it will use the Cloudflare KV. If you're deploying to Netlify, it will use Netlify blobs and so on. It just zero config. It just does it right, just without you needing to think about it. It just works. Super simple. I recommend giving it a go. So that was a little run through of stuff you may have missed that we've done recently, but this talk is called The Future of Astro. I promised I'd get here. Here we are. We're still focused on those same three things: stability, scale, and developer experience. But let me show you the specific features that we're building. Some of these are experimental now and shipping in stable in Astro 6 in the next, I'm not going to promise, but by the end of the year, let's say. Some of these are in active development, and some are longer term, things that will show where we're going next with Astro. So let's have a look. Fonts. I'm going to first take a little sip of water. So I talked about how images can be hard to get right for performance. Now, fonts can be even harder, and they can cause huge problems for performance and core web vitals. So, and this is hard to get right. Services like Google Fonts can help, but that's at the cost of your users' privacy. I mean, I imagine that quite a few people here live in countries where it's literally illegal to use Google Fonts. And you still have to get things right yourself. It doesn't do it all for you, and it's not perfect. So we're making it automatic. Let's look at the developer experience for this. So you first have to set it up. You specify your fonts, choose a provider. you're going, oh, wait a second, Matt, you were talking about Google Fonts and how it's a nightmare. Look, we can still use Google Fonts. Astro downloads them, caches them locally. No user data sent to third-party sites. Fonts are always available. And it gives you better performance because it's serving it all from the same origin. And in your page, import the font component, reference your font using a CSS variable. You can add preload if it's a critical font. Behind the scenes, Astro optimizes the font files, generates all the CSS. You can create fallback font stacks, prevent layout shift, and that handles preloading and stuff if it's needed. Now, this is powered by Capsize and Unifont. So thanks, Daniel Rowe. Hopefully he's here as well. All the complexity is hidden. So you get perfect font performance with minimal configuration. So this is experimental now. You can try it. It's shipping stable in Astro 6. Now, content security policy. This has been Astro's #1 most upvoted feature request for years. And if you haven't heard of it, CSP is super important for security. It prevents cross-site scripting attacks, well, mostly. It stops code injection and all kinds of security vulnerabilities. Like I think most of the security CVEs that we get in Astro don't apply if somebody's using a CSP. But implementing CSP manually is brutal. You have to calculate hashes for every script or style tag, or inject nonces on the fly for every page, which kind of pretty much rules out pre-rendering. Or you need to handle fonts. It needs to work for static sites and server-side rendering, and it's just incredibly difficult to get it right. And I'm sure anybody here who's tried it will agree with me. So, we took our time on this, and because we wanted to get it right. And I think we've built something that's pretty special here. So let's see what we need to do to set up to get CSP working on Astro. That. Set it to true. That's it. How is that for developer experience? So thanks, Emma, for getting that one working. Astro automatically calculates hashes for all your scripts and styles, handles fonts, works with SSR sites using response headers, works with static sites using meta tags, so pre-rendered, or if you're deploying to a platform that supports headers for static files, it uses that instead. It supports both client islands and server islands, and if you need custom directives, you can specify them in there. But for most sites, the defaults will just work. No, so anybody who has tried to implement CSP manually knows what a nightmare it can be. It's, it's really easy to totally break your site. This is a really big quality of life improvement for Astro developers, and big boost for security to end users as well. So this is experimental. Try it out now. Once again, shipping stable in Astro 6. Now, James just gave a great talk talking about how Cloudflare is using the Vite Environment API to give developers full access to platform-specific features and runtimes in development. And we're bringing that to Astro. So our current dev server was built before Astro had SSR support. And it served us well, but it suffers from the problem that's common to all dev servers, and James was kind of talking about that, is it doesn't match production. And so the current Astro dev server doesn't use our SSR handlers. So this works most of the time, but it does bring up issues. So the Vite Environment API lets us completely unify our development and production pipeline. So you can run the same runtime, same APIs, same behavior. This just means you'll catch problems earlier, gives you better debugging, and generally makes the experience a lot easier to work with. And this is under heavy development at the moment, but we should be shipping it in Astro 6 by the end of the year. I'm pointing at there's most of the Astro team is over there, so I'm kind of calling them out as they're doing stuff. So, I promise you not too much more. You can go for your coffee break soon, but I've just got some few extra little things. So, live content collections. Now, this is one I'm super excited about. You can try this experimental now, shipping stable in Astro 6. So I've talked about the content collection API already. We've got this and the new version in Astro 5, but it's great, and it's great for relatively static data because it runs at build time. So it's good for blog posts and docs and product descriptions, and things that don't change very often. Basically, things that can cope with you rebuilding the site when they change. And but what about data that changes constantly? Articles edited by dozens of people every day, or user-specific content, or real-time pricing and inventory, and so on. And obviously, you can do that on the client, or you can do live, hit APIs and so on. But live collections solve this. They give you the same nice content collections API, the DX that you already know if you're using Astro, but for data that's fetched at request time instead of build time. But they also unlock some really powerful platform patterns that you don't get by hitting an API directly. And I'm going to show you those in a minute, but bear with me. Let's first have a look what this looks like. Now, if you've created a content collection in Astro before, you will see that this is almost identical. You basically just define it there's a new file. And so Astro loaders, you can define them locally. The API for defining live loaders is actually even simpler than for build time loaders. Or more powerfully, they can be shared as node modules. So you can go out there and say, oh, I want to have a node module that loads from Airtable, a loader from Airtable, and I'll put that one in there, or YouTube or Blue Sky or whatever. And live loaders are the same. So you can have a live loader, you can install it from NPM and define it like that. So in your component, very similar API. Anyone who's used content collections will feel right at home. But the data's fetched fresh for every request. You can also pass in parameters such as the user IDs or filters and things like that. So because this is happening live, you need to, you can have a bit more flexibility on these things. But obviously, there is a drawback here. Fetching data on every request means you're hitting your API on every page load, which is not ideal. Obviously, the solution is caching. Get live entry and get live collection return cache hints that you can use to set response headers for your CDN, cache tags, last modified E tags, and so on. And that's great. I know what you're thinking. You're looking at that and thinking, it's a bit awkward, but we can do better than that. So that's how it'll be. That's how it is at the moment and how it's going to be at first. But I'm going to bring you to the last thing that I want to share with you today. So caching, something that most frameworks have to deal with in some way. But honestly, I think most solutions are usually inflexible or hard to use or vendor specific. And I don't know, I think probably ISR, in incremental static regeneration, is probably the gold standard for that at the moment. It allows you to cache server-rendered pages and use stale while revalidate, and validate them after a time has elapsed or do them on demand. And this was created for Next.js and is still mostly, that's the most place where it's used. And it's very flexible, but it's mostly tied to Vercel's platform. And some important features are Next.js only. Other hosts have to implement their own versions, or you deal with a second-class version that's included when you're doing standalone. And other frameworks have implemented versions of ISR, including Astro. Nitro has it built in as well, but they are more limited. They're missing some of the features that make ISR so good. And they are still mostly tied to specific platforms. Vercel mainly, but like Next.js has implemented some of it as well, and Cloudflare in some cases. But we're taking a different approach. How are we doing that? Trust Tim. At Astro, we're big believers in using web standards, not proprietary solutions. So when possible, we want to use the web platform, or at least stick as close to it as possible. That's why we're working on something different. So I'm just going to give a little sneak peek of what's coming on. So this is still in the early stages of development, but I'm really excited about where we're heading with this. So the API is simple and declarative. You fetch your data. You tell Astro how long you want to cache it for, and how you can give cache tags for invalidation. You can do this in the page, or you can do it in the Astro config, giving a glob thing. And under the hood, this uses web standards, CDN cache control, cache tag headers, if you're using a CDN on a platform that supports them. But we're also providing fallbacks for others so that it works everywhere. Now, I know probably what a lot of you are thinking is this is actually pretty similar to what some other frameworks give you. So what's interesting there? Well, I mean, they're good. They're doing it well. But this is where we're going to start to get a bit different. So when your data changes, you can invalidate specific pages by path, or you can invalidate entire groups of pages by tag. And what we're doing is we're going to abstract away the platform-specific parts here so that it works for everyone. But where this gets really powerful is integrations with live collections. So if you remember those cache hints that I showed you earlier. So now instead of manually setting your headers, you can just tell Astro Cache which entries your page is using, and then it does it all for you. And it will set the right tags, last modified dates, and all that kind of stuff, because the loaders are able to tell it that, and then so it uses it all, and it sends it all for you. Now, it gets better. This also means you get automatic dependency tracing. So when one entry changes, you can call a webhook and invalidate just that entry. And then Astro knows exactly which pages depend on that data. So you don't need to remember to invalidate the right collection or index pages, or is that used in a header? You just invalidate the entry that changed, and Astro takes care of the rest, including invalidating all the pages that depend on it. So you get the performance of long cached pages, but with automatic cache invalidation that just works. So you don't need to over-invalidate. So this is still at an early stage. You can follow along on the Astro roadmap repo, but this is where we're heading. So let me just wrap up by talking about the Astro project itself. So Astro was born as an open source project, and we are still community first always. And that is the heart of everything we do. We took VC funding in the before times, which let us hire full-time maintainers and pay stipends to most of the other core maintainers. But this year, we've been working really hard on long-term sustainability. Bit heavy-handed? I don't know. We've built a diversified funding model so we can thrive without relying on VCs. And we know we're very lucky to have been able to do this. So this is absolutely no shade to other projects that haven't had this luxury. But we've got the governance structures to keep the project community-driven. And we've built new partnerships with companies who share our vision for the open web. So no single company controls Astro. And how have we done this? Well, everything starts with the individual sponsors on Open Collective. They're the foundation of everything we do, but we've also got agency partners, and we do services from the Astro Technology Company, and forgive the logos, but enterprise partnerships with companies like Netlify, Google, Cloudflare, Webflow, Sentry, and Mux. And these partners, you can see, they include direct competitors. So it's not just all the frameworks with Vite that are working together. We're seeing competing companies working together with us as well. And this is because we all benefit from a healthy ecosystem. Core Astro development is already financially sustainable now, and we're well on our way to full sustainability across the whole project. So if you're a company that wants to support the open web, I'm in the orange t-shirt. Come and talk to me afterwards. But yeah, so thank you to everybody who supports Astro. That's our partners, obviously, but also the thousands of contributors and users in the Astro community. Thank you for every bug report, every feature request, every integration that you build, every helpful message in Discord. All of these matters. This all matters. And obviously, I would really, really like to thank the Vite team. Thank you for building the foundation that makes all of this possible. We're very, very proud to be part of that ecosystem. So if anybody here is still around tomorrow, come and join us for happy hour, have a few beverages and chat open web and things like that. Have a look on the link on the screen. But aside from that, thank you, ViteConf.